Maybe it was natives?
There aren't any natives here anymore.
What are you doing, Poe?
Edgar!
Who did this to you?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 horror thriller Raven's Hollow. The film is co-written and directed by Christopher Hatton and it stars William Moseley, David Heyman, Kate Dickie and Melanie Zanetti. Now the film focuses on William Moseley's character who plays Edgar Allan Poe. Now that name may seem familiar. He's the famous writer of years gone by. And in this film, it depicts him in his early military career. He is with his fellow squad members, I suppose, and they discover a body. They decide to take this body down. It looks like it's been sacrificed or something like that. They take it to the nearest town to them, which is a town called Raven's Hollow, to ask the locals if they know anything about this guy who's been murdered. Everybody pleads innocence. Something's clearly not right. They're actually warned off by some locals that there is something unnatural there and they are not safe. However, they decide to stay and investigate, which leads to some grim realities, that there is some entity there that is targeting them. Right, what are my thoughts on Raven's Hollow? Well, this is another of those films that I did have on my watch list around Halloween time. I just didn't get chance to watch it, but I have managed to watch this one now. And this, while I don't think this is for everybody, and I do think at times it is really quite slow paced. At times it leans very heavily into like gothic horror, and at times almost like it is a historical drama at times. It does feel tonally a little bit off, but there is enough here, I think, to hold interest. I think the performances, for the most part, here are very, very strong. It's an interesting idea and concept in regards to Edgar Allan Poe, who we've seen in other films depicted. I think John Cusack played him in a film I have covered on the channel called The Raven. So he has been depicted on screen before in other films and things like that. And I suspect, this is like, based on his book, because I believe he did a book called The Raven anyway. So I guess they decided to kind of make this film to depict, how he came up with that idea. I don't know. I'm just assuming, but it certainly makes logical sense to me. And I think there's like this morbid curiosity when you're watching this film, because it, like I say, it's not an exciting film. It's actually really quite grim and foreboding. There's a real sense of there's an unsettlingness when you watch this film, because there's like something undercurrent going on. There's something going on that you just can't quite put your finger on. The locals aren't behaving normally or as they should. There's something very sinister happening, and then it kind of goes from 0 to 100 in the sense of, I think this film was at its strongest when you got this sense of this supernatural thing going on, this real sense of evil, sense of grimness and foreboding, and then like it just escalates really quickly in a sense of bodies start appearing, and even though visually that's quite unsettling and quite gory, I suppose, at times, it felt like they could have stretched it out a little bit more and made the film a little bit more interesting. The stuff that made this film really interesting to me, there's not enough of it, and there's quite a lot of stuff that to me didn't seem to make a lot of sense when they're explaining what this raven is, its connection to the town, this Raven's Hollow, and its connection to some of the locals. I think could have done with a little more explanation. because you're kind of scratching your head a little bit. And the film ends with a little bit of a, why did he just do that? Don't necessarily understand it. And to me, that's, I think, a film that doesn't necessarily explain itself. Now, sometimes films are accused of over-explaining, too much exposition, treating its audience like children almost, by really going into far too much detail. I think this kind of goes the other way. It doesn't necessarily give you enough. And I like a lot of mystery in my films. Sometimes I like to, make my own mind up as to what I think has been going on. But for me, it didn't necessarily feel like when this film ended that you could go away and draw your own conclusions. It felt like there was missing information not given to the audience member. But there's definitely a real gothic feel to this. It reminded me at times of Sleepy Hollow without the charm and the comedic elements to it, and the fantastical elements. Imagine, the look and feel of Sleepy Hollow without the lighter tone, and it'll give you a bit of an idea of how this film feels and looks. There are some moments I think where this film could have leaned into the horror an awful lot more than it did. So it just kind of leaves you a little bit unsatisfied. But I think there's enough here to interest most audience members. There's some thoughtful stuff going on. There are some shocking moments here and there in the film, but ultimately I don't think it elevated it enough to make this an essential watch, certainly. That's my opinion anyway. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it useful. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.